The sound of glass breaking is sharper than any insult. One moment, I'm raising a toast to 30 years of marriage. The next, cold champagne is dripping down my jacket, the cake I saved up for collapsing on the floor, and my son's voice ringing through the stunned hall. This is what you get for thinking you're better than everyone. People turn away, pretending they're not watching, but everyone sees. My wife rushes to his side, holds him like a wounded child, whispering, "Let him get his anger out." No one looks at me. Not my son. Not my wife. Not the guests I'd called family for decades. I stare at the mess on the floor. Pink icing smeared over broken plates. Champagne soaking into the tablecloth. Grown adults avoiding the only man who paid for every smile in that room. No apology. No explanation. Just the hush that falls when something inside you cracks and refuses to be patched. I pick up my coat and leave quietly. No shouting, no accusations. Outside, the night air bites harder than the embarrassment. The moon is full. I can't remember the last time I noticed that. When I get home, I pour myself a glass of water, hands trembling, but not from rage. I sit at the kitchen table. I log in to the account that holds his college tuition. A few keystrokes. Gone. I check the co-signed lease I agreed to just last month. Frozen. In my silence, I feel older than I've ever felt. But not weak, just awake. When the sun finally rises, I ask myself, how does a father learn to grieve a living son? Sleep doesn't come easily to men who've been betrayed by their own blood. I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the weight of last night pressing on my chest. The echoes of shattered glass and my son's voice haunt every corner of the house. The silence is thick. My wife still hasn't returned, her absence louder than any argument. The early sunlight seeps through the blinds, painting thin golden stripes across the empty living room. I shuffle to the kitchen, the floor cold beneath my feet. I make coffee the way I always have, but it tastes different, bitter, metallic, almost unfamiliar. I check my phone, half hoping for an apology, half expecting nothing at all. A single message from my wife blinks on the screen. Give him space. He's hurting. I reread it, searching for any trace of empathy for me, but find only a mother's endless excuses. My mind drifts back to all those years, every scraped knee I bandaged, every late night drive home from practice, every dollar I tucked away for a future I thought was ours. I remember the day I signed the lease for his apartment, the look in his eyes as he promised to handle things like an adult. I wonder if he ever saw me as anything but a silent safety net. By 10:30, I've convinced myself the day will pass in peace. But at exactly 10:45, my phone rings, sharp, insistent, slicing through my thoughts. It's my son, his voice cracking between anger and panic. "Dad, my tuition won't go through. The apartment company says the lease is frozen. What did you do?" He doesn't sound like the boy from last night. No bravado, no venom. Just fear. Just confusion. He waits for my answer, but I say nothing. I let the silence settle, heavy and uncomfortable. Minutes later, another call. Then, another. His mother. His landlord. Even his friend. Each more desperate than the last. I let them all go to voicemail. For the first time, I realize I'm not angry. I'm not even hurt. I'm just finished. Finished giving to people who see me as nothing but a wallet with a heartbeat. Sometimes, justice isn't loud. It's a quiet undoing of every expectation they ever built on your back. And as the calls keep coming, I finally ask myself, when do you stop rescuing those who never wanted to be saved? The house feels colder as the day goes on, but I don't touch the thermostat. I sit at the kitchen table, phone face down, letting the voicemails pile up. Each one carries the same desperate energy. My son, cycling through anger and confusion. My wife, alternating between blame and bargaining. They all say the same thing, without saying it. Fix this. Make it right. But no one ever says, "Are you okay?" By noon, sunlight pours in through the front windows, casting long shadows on the living room floor. I watch the dust floating in the quiet air. For a moment, I remember the laughter that used to fill this house, birthday candles, sleepover giggles, the way my son would run up the stairs 2 at a time just to tell me good night. I wonder when all that turned into silence. At exactly 12:12, the front door slams open. My son storms in, his face red with frustration, eyes darting everywhere except at me. He tosses his phone on the table. "Why did you do this?" he demands, voice shaking. "You ruined everything, my tuition, my lease. You can't just cut me off." I study him, searching for the boy I once knew. But all I see is a stranger who believes love means never being told no. I take a slow breath. "I didn't ruin anything," I say quietly. "I just stopped pretending my respect was something you could throw away and expect back the next morning." He stares at me, blindsided by the boundary. It's as if he can't imagine a world where his choices have weight. He tries to argue, voice rising. "How am I supposed to finish school? Where am I supposed to live? This is all your fault." I meet his gaze, steady and unbroken. "You're an adult," I reply. "Adults live with the consequences of what they do in the light and what they say in the dark." He falters, jaw tight, eyes wet. He wants to shout, but nothing comes. For years, I kept the peace by swallowing every insult, letting every storm pass for the sake of family. But peace built on fear isn't peace at all. He leaves, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoes down the hall, but I don't flinch. For the first time in years, I don't feel empty, I feel free. And as the quiet settles, I ask myself, how many apologies never come because we trained people to expect forgiveness instead of respect? Afternoon sunlight drifts through the blinds as the hours pass. I move through my own home like a guest, my steps careful, my breathing measured. The phone barely stops buzzing, one message after another. My wife's texts come rapid fire. "How could you do this to your own son? We need to talk. You're overreacting. Undo it now before things get worse." I set the phone aside, the screen face down. For once, I refuse to rush in and solve the mess. In the silence, memories find me. I see my son at 5 years old, building towers from blocks and crying when they fall. Back then, I would kneel beside him, help him rebuild. But he's not 5 anymore. And this isn't a tower of blocks. By evening, my wife returns, her footsteps sharp, her eyes wild with urgency. She doesn't greet me. She barely looks at me. She stands in the doorway, arms folded tight. "You embarrassed him. In front of everyone. You made him feel small." Her words hang in the air, thick with blame. I answer quietly, "He did that on his own. I just stopped protecting him from it." She shakes her head, tears shining but never falling. "He's your son." I nod, feeling each word settle like stone. He still is. But he's also a man. And men live with the world they make. She turns away, frustrated by my calm. I watch her walk down the hall, see her shoulders shake. Anger, grief, maybe fear that the old rules of our family no longer apply. I want to tell her I'm not angry, that my silence isn't punishment, it's a boundary. But some lessons are learned in quiet, not conflict. Night comes. I make myself dinner, alone at the table. The kitchen echoing with the memory of birthdays, holidays, laughter that once seemed endless. I eat slowly, letting the emptiness settle in. A new message lights up my phone. This time, it's from my son. A single sentence. "Can we talk?" I stare at the words, my thumb hovering over the screen. I think about every time I forgave too quickly, every time I let disrespect slide for the sake of peace. This time, I don't answer right away. Instead, I ask myself, what does it mean to love someone enough to let them feel the cost of their own choices? I sit by the window as dusk slips into night, city lights blinking awake in the distance. The house feels like a memory, familiar, but echoing with the absence of warmth. I watch the world outside, the gentle sway of trees in the wind, the slow crawl of headlights up the quiet street. Inside, I hear only the steady tick of the old clock and the hum of the refrigerator. No laughter, no footsteps, just me and the silence I've earned. A message from my son waits on my phone, unread. I know what it says without seeing the words. Another plea, Another attempt to rewind what can't be undone. My wife's door is closed, her side of the house dark. I think about the sacrifices that go unnoticed, late nights at work, canceled plans, dreams put on hold so a family could have a little more. The world calls it duty. Fathers know it as love, paid in invisible installments. My hand rests on the table, fingers brushing a faded photograph. My son at 10, grinning in the sun, missing front teeth. I remember the promise I made that summer, to always be his safe place. But sometimes, love is the space you give, not the net you throw. As midnight nears, the phone rings again. I let it buzz until the sound dies off. A part of me aches to answer, but a deeper part knows this silence is necessary. I pour a glass of water, the kitchen cool beneath my bare feet. Outside, the street is empty. In the stillness, I sense a shift, not just in my son, but in myself. I am no longer the man who bends until he breaks. Tonight, I choose to stand. And as I turn off the kitchen light, a strange, unexpected relief washes over me. A quiet knowing that sometimes the bravest thing a father can do is let go. The night wraps around the house, calm and certain. Some bonds are broken in anger, but some boundaries are built in love. Morning comes quietly, the first rays slipping across the kitchen floor. I wake before the alarm, muscle memory from years of early shifts and quiet goodbyes. The air feels lighter, though nothing in my life is easy. My son hasn't come home. My wife is a shadow in the hallway, avoiding my gaze, her movements small and silent. The house, once a place of noise and belonging, now feels hollow, but honest, a mirror reflecting the truth we tried to hide beneath forced smiles and perfect family photos. I pour coffee, watching the steam curl upward, the silence thick but not cruel. My phone is heavy in my hand, dozens of unread messages blinking for attention. I scroll through them, my son's anger melting to confusion, then desperation. He wants things to be fixed, to have the old safety net back. He doesn't say he's sorry. In the background, the news hums from the living room TV. Stories about strangers with bigger problems. For a moment, I feel foolish for caring so much about a single ruined night, a broken cake. But pain is never about the moment. It's about every cut that came before. I think of the day I co-signed that lease, the way my son assured me he was ready. I remember the pride in his voice when the acceptance letter arrived. The small glances my wife gave me, silently asking, "Are we doing the right thing?" I always said yes. I wanted to believe in him. Now, there's nothing left to do but wait for someone else to choose honesty. So I step outside, coffee in hand, and let the cool air clear my thoughts. The world keeps turning. Neighbors wave from their driveways. A dog barks 2 houses down. Life doesn't pause for our heartbreaks. Late in the afternoon, my wife finally speaks, her voice tired but steady. "He's at his friend's place," she says. "He says he's not coming back until you make this right." I nod, feeling the finality in her words. But I don't reach for my phone. I don't rush to repair what isn't mine to fix. Some storms you learn to outlast, not outrun. As evening falls, I close every window in the house, one by one, locking out the old winds. Tonight, the silence feels earned, solid, like the ground after rain. And somewhere in that hush, I realize, real peace isn't what you keep. It's what you refuse to lose again. Days pass in slow motion, each one carving out new shapes in the life I thought I knew. My wife moves around the house as if haunted, glancing at old photos, dusting shelves she's cleaned 1,000 times before. Her eyes tell me she's waiting for things to go back, as if pain can be erased by pretending hard enough. My phone barely rings now. The messages have stopped, no more desperate voicemails, no new numbers flashing on the screen. I wonder if this is how distance begins, not with a fight, but with a slow, quiet drifting apart. At night, I lie awake, tracing the lines in the ceiling, listening for the sound of my son coming home. The house is quieter than ever. I think of all the times I stepped in, the times I handed over money, smoothed over conflicts, kept the peace while letting myself vanish. All the times I traded truth for comfort. One afternoon, I find my wife sitting in the living room, holding a family photo from years ago. Our son, grinning and carefree, arms around both of us, unaware of what the world would one day demand of him. She looks at me with a sadness I can't soften. "Do you ever regret it?" she asks, voice thin as paper. I want to tell her I regret nothing except the moments I wasn't honest, with him, with her, with myself. But I just shake my head. We raised him to stand tall, I say quietly. It's time we let him try. That night, for the first time in decades, I locked the front door and double-checked the windows before bed. Not out of fear, but as a ritual, an act of protection, but also acceptance. This house, my house, belongs to someone who finally chose himself. The next morning, sunlight fills every room, gold and clean. The air is new, the old weight gone. I walk through the house with slow steps, noticing the peace that settled in the quiet places grief used to live. Outside, a car pulls up. My son steps out, shoulders squared, face older than it was a week ago. He stands at the door, hesitating. I open it, the threshold between old hurt and whatever comes next. He doesn't apologize, not with words. He meets my eyes, chest rising with the courage it takes to return. And in that unspoken moment, a new story begins, one built not on forgiveness, but on respect hard-earned and boundaries rebuilt. Sometimes, the greatest gift you can give your child is letting go. Tonight, there is no echo of anger, only the promise that this silence, at last, is honest. The final chapter of our family's old story closes not with an argument, but with a quiet morning. I wake to the smell of coffee brewing, my own routine, steady and unremarkable. Sunlight moves slowly across the kitchen table, illuminating everything that's changed and everything that's still here. My wife sits across from me, silent but softer than she's been in days. She pours her own coffee now, no longer waiting for me to do it. The small things between us, passing the sugar, sharing the morning news, feel like truce lines, simple and fragile. Our son appears in the doorway, looking different than before. He lingers, one hand on the frame, uncertainty shadowing his face. There's no grand apology, no speeches, just a nod, a pause, a silent agreement that things broke, but the world didn't end. We share breakfast in a peace that feels new, not forced. Every movement is deliberate, every word considered. My son thanks me for the meal, his tone measured, respectful, aware of the ground he walks on now. My wife listens, and for the first time, doesn't rush to fill the spaces between us. Later, I walk the quiet block alone, the air fresh, the sky wide and clear. Neighbors wave, and I wave back. I feel lighter, not because the pain is gone, but because I finally set it down. At home, I find an old box in the closet, filled with keepsakes, a childhood drawing, a high school trophy, a faded birthday card in messy handwriting. I let myself smile, remembering the years when love was simple and forgiveness was easy. But I understand now. Real love doesn't mean erasing every mistake or covering every wound with comfort. Sometimes it means standing your ground, risking distance, letting go of the safety net so those you love can learn to climb on their own. The house is different now, quieter, but stronger. The boundaries I drew weren't walls to keep my family out, but foundations for them to find their way back. We don't talk about the anniversary. We don't need to. The lessons are written in the space between us, clear, undeniable, and earned. As evening falls, I sit by the window and watch the world settle into darkness, feeling at peace with what I've lost and what I've gained. In the end, silence became the loudest answer of all.